there are always a select few who need.
Hundreds of years ago, humanity exhausted Earth's natural resources, leading to chaos and war. The world's best scientists took on the mission of saving what was left of civilization. They created genetically modified orchids, which became the new energy source. However, as humans continued to fight over their differences, the scientists developed a life-changing operation known as the transformation. When people turn 16, they undergo this procedure that transforms them into their most perfect selves. Those who have completed it are called pretties and live happily in the city, avoiding conflict. In contrast, those who have not yet undergone the procedure are referred to as uglies and remain in the dorms of Uglyville. Tally can't wait to become pretty and frequently uses a mirror app to see how she will look after the transformation. Her best friend is Paris, and they affectionately call each other Nose and Squint since childhood. Sometimes they sneak out during curfew to the bridge, where they use special glasses to watch the pretties partying in the city. Tally is excited to turn 16 in 3 months, but Paris, who is older, is scheduled for his operation tomorrow. They both have matching scars on their hands and have promised not to let the doctors erase them when they become pretty. Just then, a patrol drone flies, prompting them to return to their dorms. The next day during assembly, Tally overhears other students discussing a hidden place outside the city called the Smoke, led by a guy named David. Many people escape to hide there, but most students think it's a myth. At that moment, a hologram of Governor Cable appears and gives a speech about the importance of being pretty and perfect. Then those who turned 16 are called, and Tally reluctantly says goodbye to Paris, asking him to meet her at the bridge in 1 month. That evening, Tally gazes at the city and remembers the day she met Paris. Her parents had just dropped her off at the dormitories when she saw Paris behind her in line. They exchanged nicknames and quickly became best friends. One day, Paris accidentally cut his hand while taking a tablet from Tally, and she got the same scar when they promised to stay friends forever. As days pass, Tally maintains her routine of attending class and checking her reflection in the mirror. She often checks her interface ring, but Paris does not send any messages. After a month, Tally hacks her window open using her ring and leaves it behind because it has a tracker. Sneaking around, she makes her way to the bridge, but Paris hasn't shown up. Worried, she uses a rope to climb onto the bridge and precariously moves beneath it until she reaches the city. Once in the city, she hides behind plants, but when a partygoer drops a mask, Tally grabs it and puts it on. The mask creates a hologram that makes her appear wearing a fancy dress, allowing her to enter the party. Amazed by the decorations, she eventually spots Paris, who looks completely different and doesn't recognize her. Tally removes her mask and asks why he didn't come to the bridge. He explains that things are different now and that he doesn't know how to relate to her. Tally is shocked by his response and realizes how much he has changed when she notices that his scar is gone. The security system detects Tally's presence, and she has to run away from the incoming guards. She gets stuck on a balcony, steals a bungee jacket, and jumps. The fall feels long, but the jacket allows her to bounce and land gently nearby. She quickly makes her way out of the city and climbs back under the bridge. When she accidentally kicks a stone into the water, a drone detects her and approaches to arrest her. Suddenly, her classmate Shay appears and urges Tally to hop on her hoverboard so they can escape. The drone tries to follow them, but Shay is a skilled driver and manages to lose it by making sharp turns through the woods. Tally breaks into the kitchen to thank Shay for her help and steals some snacks. The girls bond over their experiences and the difficulty of being left behind when all their friends turn 16 first. Tally and Shay are excited to discover that they share the same birthday and look forward to having a friend with whom they can enjoy the experience. The next day, Shay brings a second hoverboard and attempts to teach Tally how to ride it, but Tally immediately falls off. At school, Tally is surprised to see some girls returning a book to Shay since they are no longer in the group. The girls admire the book's description of surviving in nature and wonder if that's what the smoke is like. Tally borrows the book, and the girls compliment her for her bold stunt the previous night, which frustrates her because Shay had told everyone. She's worried that they might punish her by denying her the opportunity for the operation. However, Shay reassures her that the system wants everyone to be pretty. Tally reads the book as days pass, but still dreams about the operation. Shay continues teaching her how to use the hoverboard, and Tally hacks her ring to obtain extra food in exchange. She shows Shay her pretty designs on an app, but Shay doesn't have an account. In fact, she isn't enthusiastic about the operation at all. Eventually, Tally becomes proficient at flying the hoverboard, and the girls have fun using them on crazy ramps. When Tally returns the book to Shay, she desires to visit the beautiful place described in it. Shay suggests that not getting the operation might not be so bad, but Tally thinks that idea is ridiculous. Suddenly, Shay brings up the smoke and takes Tally to the edge of the woods. After leaving their rings on some branches, they cross the border by riding their hoverboards over the river. They eventually arrive at the ruins of an old city where Shay tells Tally about ancient objects like roller coasters. Shay takes Tally into an abandoned building and reveals a surprising truth. The smoke is accurate, and David will arrive soon. Shay declares that she refuses to get the surgery and will be leaving that night, inviting Tally to come with her. However, Tally declines, saying she doesn't want to be free, she wants to be pretty. Upset, Shay gives Tally directions to the smoke in case she ever changes her mind, and hugs her before leaving on her hoverboard, following the sign of David's fire in another building. On Tally's next birthday, she is supposed to go to the clinic for surgery, but they call everyone except her. A guard then takes her in an aircraft to meet Dr. Cable, who informs her that Shay is missing. Tally insists she doesn't know anything, but Cable can see her vitals on a screen, indicating she is lying. She tells Tally that Shay is in danger because David has brainwashed her and is known for holding people against their will. When Tally continues to deny any knowledge, Cable sends her back to her dorm without the surgery. That night, Tally hears a noise and is surprised to see Paris at her window. Tally explains the situation, and Paris believes she should tell Cable what she knows so they can finally be together. The next day, Tally is taken back to see Cable, who informs her that David is developing a weapon to attack the city. She needs Tally to infiltrate the smoke. Tally agrees to help, and Cable promises that if she is successful, she will get the surgery she desires. Tally receives a necklace from Cable that glimmers in her eyes, which she must activate when she locates the weapon's location. Following Cable's instructions, Tally rides the hoverboard along an old roller coaster for several miles. Eventually, she discovers a gap and falls into the woods, but is caught by a force field. In the woods, she encounters abandoned train tracks that she must follow to find the source of the smoke. Over the next few days, Tally survives in the wild, reading a book and appreciating nature like never before. She also manages to climb a mountain. However, the train tracks have a large gap over a chasm. Determined, she hops on the hoverboard again and makes a big jump that shuts down the board. Tally begins to fall rapidly, but the hoverboard reactivates just before hitting the ground, allowing her to land safely on the other side of the chasm. Now she has to wait in a field of flowers as instructed. Meanwhile, Cable brings Paris to her office and reveals that he visited her dorm the previous night at her request. He admits it felt good to be back in the city, as if he could think clearly again. Cable then announces that a select few have been chosen for a new procedure. Paris agrees to enter the surgery machine for body enhancements. That night, Tally wakes up coughing due to smoke. She discovers the field is on fire and panics, unsure what to do. Suddenly, a mysterious figure rescues her. It's David. He begins to scan Tally and her belongings for trackers, finds one inside the hoverboard and removes it, but his scanner doesn't react to the necklace. At the same time, Cable's men were alerted to the tracker's removal and were dispatched to search the area. The following morning, David and Tally reach one of the smoke outposts where she reunites with her friend Shay. Shay is thrilled to see her, but Croy is suspicious. That night, as the group camps, Shay asks about the necklace, and Tally lies, saying it was a gift from Paris. Surprised by Shay's happiness after what Cable had said, Tally tries to express her concerns, which makes Shay think she has come to persuade her to return. An argument erupts, but Tally ultimately agrees to give the smoke a chance. The next day, Tally learns that the smoke intentionally starts fires to burn the orchids, which are toxic and destructive to their surroundings. Tally argues that the orchids were a clean energy solution. Still, David insists it's a government deception and that the flowers make the planet a wasteland. He wants to take Tally on a mission to prove it, but Croy protests. However, Shay supports Tally. The group has an old helicopter retrofitted with solar panels, and they take to the skies. From the air, Tally sees the area where orchids once flourished, now reduced to desert. Using a flamethrower, Shay ignites as many orchids as possible. Croy's tablet detects an approaching threat, prompting David to lower the helicopter to conceal themselves in the smoke. However, this movement causes Shay to fall due to the rope securing her becoming detached. Cable's scouts close in on their position, and Tally ties a bag to the end of the rope to provide some weight and throws it over the side. She uses it to descend and search for Shay amidst the flames. Fortunately, she locates her, and when a scout approaches, Tally grabs the burning bag and hurls it at him. Tally and Shay clutch the rope tightly, and the helicopter escapes just in time to avoid a scout's attempt to jump aboard. After landing, Croy blames Tally for their discovery by the scouts. Still, Shay defends her, and David believes anyone willing to risk their life for the smoke deserves a chance. As the group settles down that night, Tally can't sleep, haunted by thoughts of Cable and her training to manipulate the rebels. She walks and inadvertently finds David bathing in the river, prompting her to quickly return to the tent to hide her embarrassment. The next day, Tally is blindfolded and finally taken to the smoke, revealing a thriving community living harmoniously with nature. Tally thinks life is more complicated than in the city, but she admits that food tastes better when you grow it yourself. Even older people must work, and since there is no money, things are shared or traded. Most importantly, everyone is there by choice. The train tracks are recycled to make tools, but do not create weapons because the community is a pacifist. One afternoon, Tally finds a strange door and tries to look inside, but Croy catches her and sends her away. Despite this, Tally starts using tools to help with the tracks, tries spicy food for the first time, and joins in the dances around the fire. Sometime later, David teaches Tally how to use a hunting crossbow, and they enjoy their time together. It takes her a few tries, but eventually she hits the practice target. On their way back, David explains that he had never seen the city because he had been born in the wild and had grown up with his family. Tally is shocked to hear this since she barely knew her own parents. At that moment, David gifts her a pair of gloves, which Shay later notices. Shay points out that it's a big deal because objects have different values. Since David made those gloves, giving them to Tally means he likes her. Shay advises Tally to make her own choice and to stop playing with such objects. The next time Tally walks with David, she mentions hearing rumors of a weapon that could destroy the city. David takes her to a house far from the camp where she meets his parents, Az and Maddie, who guard all the books. They used to be cosmetic surgeons for the government. They grew suspicious of a few tests, so they began investigating. The physical changes were just a cover to hide that people were also undergoing brain alterations. Becoming pretty meant becoming dumb and slow under a false sense of happiness, allowing the state to control them quickly. The operation has also resulted in many deaths, which were kept secret. When Cable realizes Az and Maddie know the truth, she steals all their research. Like doctors, people working for the state received a cure to think clearly while working. David's parents chose to flee the city and age naturally in the woods. They have been looking for a way to recreate the cure but lack a synthetic component, so they only have a base serum. This is the supposed weapon that could destroy the city. After the meeting, Tally throws her necklace into the fire, choosing to stay in the smoke. She tries to tell David about the terrible things she's done, but he doesn't care because he believes she is a new person. They share a kiss, and the necklace sparks in the fire. The following day, city aircraft arrive at the smoke camp and open fire. Everyone begins to run away, chased by scouts who fall into traps like nets and logs. Unfortunately, the scouts are too fast and strong, so the traps aren't enough to stop them. Soon they capture every rebel on their path, including Shay. Tally manages to find a hiding spot with David, who wants to go out to help. She stops him, insisting that the scouts are too strong. The duo sneaks over to where the rebels are being gathered as prisoners. Tally is devastated to discover that Paris has become a scout. Az and Maddie are captured when Cable arrives and demands to know where David is. The parents refuse to talk, prompting Cable to order Paris to kill Az. David and Tally rush out to stop him, but it's too late. Then Cable announces that Tally has been working for her, causing the smoke members to turn against her. While everyone is distracted, Maddie secretly places the serum in David's pocket. As Cable declares that everyone will undergo surgery, Tally runs to the supply shack, starts a fire, grabs a crossbow, and escapes through the window just as the scout tries to break in. The fire causes an explosion, throwing the scout back and allowing David to escape, but another scout quickly pursues him. By throwing an arrow at the scout, Tally allows David to run, preventing him from continuing the chase. Although Paris wants to join in, Cable announces that they are leaving. Meanwhile, some scouts destroy Maddie's research and set the area on fire, while others push all the prisoners into the aircraft. After they leave, David collects any supplies he can find to prepare for a rescue mission. When Tally approaches him, he instinctively attacks her with a knife, but narrowly stops himself from hurting her. She insists that she wants to help him rescue the others, but David expresses mistrust. Tally says he needs her guidance since he's never been to the city. Later on in the city, Tally meets with students who have read Shay's book. She introduces them to David to prove that the smoke is real. Tally borrows an interface ring from the students and asks them to gather many kids to create a distraction. Soon, numerous teenagers are seen writing about the smoke while riding their hoverboards. Meanwhile, David and Tally wait for the aircraft to leave the clinic before sneaking in on hoverboards. They navigate the aircraft tunnel and land safely, thanks to bungee vests. As they carefully make their way around, Tally uses her ring to hack a lock, but it turns out to be ineffective since it's not just a kitchen door. Suddenly, a guard opens the door, and David immediately engages him in a fight. After exchanging a few blows, David overpowers the guard, holding him against the wall so Tally can take his ring. David throws the guard into the corridor, and Tally locks the door behind them. As alarms blare, the duo locates the cell and uses the ring to free everyone. However, Tally realizes that Shay is missing, and Croy reveals she has already undergone the surgery. While most of the group escapes, David, Tally, and Maddie search for Shay. Unfortunately, when they reach the lab, they find it's too late. Shay has already been transformed. Tally cries and apologizes, but Shay insists that she loves her new appearance. At that moment, Cable and Paris arrive, forcing the trio to enter the machine for their surgery. As the process begins, a smoke helicopter appears outside, interrupting before the needles can cut. Croy opens fire with a flamethrower, forcing Cable and Paris to run. The machines take damage, causing the system to fail and the operation to stop. The trio emerges, and Tally grabs Shay while Maddie retrieves the component she needs from a cupboard. They rush to the roof and find Paris. Tally attempts to reason with him by using their nicknames and pointing out a piece of glass that caused his scar. Paris gently touches Tally's face, but David misinterprets it as an attack and tackles him, initiating a fight. Paris proves too strong and begins to overpower David. Just as he is about to kill him, Tally uses a hoverboard to move quickly and tackles Paris, causing him to fall over the edge. He hangs on momentarily, calling out her nickname before plummeting into a waterfall. Afterwards, the group escapes on hoverboards, witnessing other teens making the drones crash into each other in the sky. They hide in an abandoned city where Maddie takes the serum from David's pocket to mix the cure. However, she is uncertain whether it will work or have harmful side effects on the brain. Shay is reluctant to take it and refuses to force anyone else to do so. In a brave move, Tally volunteers to be the test subject. She decides to turn herself in and undergo the surgery so that she can take the cure, promising to signal the others if it works. As the aircraft and Cable approach, the group shares a final goodbye before running away. Meanwhile, Tally allows the scouts to arrest her. Sometime later, Tally is transformed into the perfect picture of beauty, living in a luxurious apartment. She claims to love her new life, but the scar on her hand reveals she is still herself, living a lie as a spy.
I see him.
In the morning. Until then, you should get some sleep.
Being told I'm not me because you're not me. You are not me!
Cameron Turner, a kind man who puts his family first, lives in a future not too far away when technology has advanced to new heights. He just got the terrible news that he had a fatal condition, and that news prompted him to investigate cloning technologies. A mysterious laboratory in the middle of a lush forest, managed by Dr. Scott, achieved a stunning technique that can greatly impact the future of people's lives. She intends to create a clone of people and insert all their memories into it. When a person's death is near, this company can replace that person's clone in real life. As Cameron considers the far-reaching consequences of his decision, he is enticed to this institution and leaves his DNA samples behind. But he still isn't sure since he has a heavy choice. A note arrives from Dr. Scott after he spends the night reliving memories. The most recent scans show a sharp deterioration in his health, the doctor says, encouraging him to make a choice quickly. In a flashback to Cameron's past on the subway, he is overwhelmed by the beauty of a girl named Poppy, who sits across from him. They both take a piece of chocolate on the table and eat it, and as Poppy leaves, Cameron asks her to take the chocolate with her, but she just laughs and leaves. Hours later, Cameron finds his chocolates in his bag and starts laughing because they are eating Poppy's chocolates. On the next trip, Cameron secretly draws a sketch of her on paper and gives her a gift when she leaves. A few moments later, Poppy returns the gift, except that she left her ID on the back of the paper, which makes Cameron incredibly happy. For now, Cameron casually brushes Dr. Scott's suggestion off and enters his house, where he greets his furry friend cordially and checks in on his wife, Poppy, and son, Corey. An unanticipated seizure ensues as he makes his way to the restroom. He quietly closes the door, keeping his wife from knowing about his disease so she doesn't have to face the unpleasant truth of it. He meets Dr. Scott the next day to see the living quarters of her institution, where patients stay until their death when a clone has been sent to replace them. Once the contract is signed, Cameron meets Dalton, a psychologist and the lead technician in the control room. To his surprise, Dr. Scott explains that their institute is run by 3 humans, including her and Dalton, and that AI handles most of the operations there. After that, Dalton nicely asks him to turn off the cameras on his contacts and watch before letting him into the room with his sound-asleep clone. His clone, named Jack, is still a sleeping corpse. Nothing has happened. Cameron is shocked and startled by what they see, and they are hesitant to touch it until the doctor gives the go-ahead. Cameron finds the incident quite unsettling, so they decide not to pursue it further. He returns to his little home and resumes the routine of his everyday existence. Along the way, he keeps thinking about Dr. Scott's words, and doubt seems to be an obstacle for him to continue. Even though his profession as a designer is quite depressing, he finds comfort in being with his wife and children. The next morning at breakfast, Corey talks about his uncle Andre, who is dead, and this affects Poppy greatly and makes her look depressed. His thoughts return to his talk with Poppy and her twin brother Andre, centered on clones. He distinctly recalls his wife's statement on her stance on clones, in which she said she couldn't care less whether they looked human. However, she explains with the example of her lost mother that if her clone was present now, and the sense of her presence seemed so real, she would agree with this. Once again, Cameron contacts Dr. Scott, who reassures him that the clones have had all memories of the institution wiped, so they don't know they are duplicates. She tells him the tale of the last clone they sent out in the hopes that he would get it. To ease his last uncertainties, she proposes they meet. Cameron then visits a clone named Kate, a real estate agent, pretending to be a client to talk to her. As if nothing unusual has happened, Cameron, Kate, and her daughter continue talking. Cameron keeps Kate's clone status a secret from her daughter, who shows no signs of knowing that she isn't interacting with her mother. By returning home, Cameron is hit by a tidal surge of emotions. As he struggles with his strange feelings, Poppy joins him and informs him that she is pregnant. She mentions that their second child is due in 7 months, but Cameron feels a twinge of melancholy amid all the joy. He realizes that he may never get to meet his baby. He briefly considers telling her the truth, but realizes he can't bring himself to say it. Refusing to admit he is anxious about becoming a parent again, he makes up a weak explanation. Subsequently, he contacts Dr. Scott to convey his reconsideration. The real Kate awaits Cameron upon his return to the facility. Cameron joins her, and they talk about his meeting with her clone. As they walk, they discuss, and he says how happy her kid is. Kate admits that her clone has lived in her place for about 42 days and 6 hours. Afterwards, he contacts Poppy to let him know he'll be away to complete a crucial project for a while. After the clinic provides Cameron with new clothing, he is drugged. He undergoes a 6-hour process to transfer his memories to his clone, Jack. Making sure their minds are in sync is the next most important thing to do when the surgery is over. This causes Cameron to go back in time to some of his most formative experiences, including meeting Poppy for the first time, celebrating the birth of their first child, and grieving the tragic death of Andre. Now that they've gone through many synchronization rounds, it's time to wake up Jack. They are shown in different rooms to give each one time to adapt. Dr. Scott tells Jack he is indistinguishable from the original save for a freckle on his palm. This freckle acts as a purposeful identifier to aid in his memory recall. Cameron makes sure to spend time with his family and other loved ones by connecting with them in the evenings. But he had an unexpected seizure one night when he and Corey were playing video games online. Thrillingly, he stops the conversation in a panic just before he passes out. The next day, he goes on a walk with Kate and confides in her about his terrible dread of dying without saying goodbye to his family. At a later time, he will meet Jack for the first time. He overhears Jack and Dr. Scott having a pinpoint conversation about Poppy. Jack opens out about his crippling anxiety over the scenario, and the two of them look at each other anxiously. Dr. Scott wants Cameron to watch while he interviews Jack to test his memory, as he still has trouble understanding what's happening. The fact that Jack not only remembers everything with crystal clarity, but also feels the same way about those experiences as Cameron does, surprises him. Some follow-up questions concerning Jack, this time with Cameron present. Along with the reoccurring nightmares that plague him, Jack describes in detail the difficult times he had while Poppy was grieving Andre's death. Because of his extraordinary talent for expressing Cameron's repressed feelings and inner anguish, Cameron starts to feel like he's losing his identity and also starts answering the questions. They contact Poppy after having a similar eating pattern and sharing a meal. While Jack deftly steers the discussion, Cameron can enjoy the role of spectator. When Cameron sees his clone is to be welcomed by his wife in such a natural way that she doesn't notice, it greatly unsettles him. After this disturbing encounter, Cameron ends the conversation because he feels uneasy about everything he has seen. When they can't agree on what to do next, he and Jack get into a violent argument and fight. Afterwards, the two guys had an emotional chat about how worried they were that Poppy would find out about their situation. However, Cameron is unwavering in his commitment and intent to see his family again, even if his health fails. With Dr. Scott's permission, he returns home to spend 3 days with his family. An interesting turn occurs just before Cameron leaves. Hidden cameras are installed in his contact lenses. Jack can get vital insights into Cameron's personal life via this. Unfortunately, upon entering the house, while looking at Poppy from the window, Cameron suddenly has a seizure and collapses on the street. Cameron is reluctantly put in the hands of Dr. Scott's plans when a vehicle is sent to get him and bring him back to the institution. Despite his misgivings, Cameron knows he must do this if he wants to save his loved ones from the pain of seeing him die. Dr. Scott gently tends to Cameron after another round of unconsciousness and gives him strong medicine to help him sleep. She tells Dalton to call Jack in the morning as Cameron is not set. Dalton initially disagrees, but it is decided that Jack will return home the next morning. Before leaving, she explains to Jack that he has to create a fake story about being late. Then Jack takes some of Cameron's belongings and is sent to his home. Assuming everything goes as planned, he will return to have the cloning process wiped from his memory. It will be necessary for him to wear contact lenses that include cameras so that his growth may be properly monitored. When Jack arrives at the residence, everything seems to be going well. He talks to Poppy and Corey as if nothing is wrong, but they cannot distinguish him from Cameron. Surprisingly, he can engage with them readily, since his memories serve him well. His only problem is that the dog keeps barking since it doesn't know him. One day later, Cameron wakes up with a nightmare and imagines that Jack may have gone to his family in his absence. He is disappointed by Dr. Scott's confirmation of this case. He still has unfinished business with his loved ones. Still, Cameron receives a piece of truth from Dr. Scott that warns him of his impending death. Following that, Cameron spends most of his time viewing the family footage that Jack is filming.
Somehow I'm finally breathing again. But I feel like I've lost you again.
On the other hand, Kate's cancer progressed to the point where she eventually died. Her body is lowered into the peaceful waters of the lake after she has passed away. Over time, Jack starts taking his contacts out more often, not just at night. This causes more distress in Cameron. Nevertheless, Dr. Scott adds that he should give his family some space. Still, Cameron's suspicions about her hidden plans intensify, and he thinks they might be hiding something from him. One night, Cameron wakes up distressed by a recurring nightmare about Jack's abuse of Corey, imagining that Jack may be harming his family in his absence. He takes things into his own hands and steals a broken old watch that Jack had refused. Cameron uses the latent power of the watch to call a boat that returns him to the mainland as he daringly escapes from the facility in the dark. He gets home at last after a few hours of traveling. Without delay, he decides to first go to his office upstairs to find out what is going on. He finds a trove of artwork by Jack and transcripts of his chats with Poppy in his office, the first place he visits. As soon as Jack hears the voice, he gets up and appears behind Cameron. However, he kindly asks him to do what is needed and lets him spend one more night with his family. They switch clothes, shocking the household pet into hiding when it sees them. Cameron wakes Corey and guides him to the kitchen as Jack hides in the closet. He teaches him how to eat raw soy properly, Poppy's favorite side dish with beer. Tears fall from Cameron's eyes as he cradles his kid in his arms. He puts his kid back to bed and slips silently into her bedroom. After that, he gently wakes Poppy up. Upon sensing his distress, she consoles him, and the two decide to commemorate her brother by naming their son Andre. He hugs her with all his heart and sheds tears because he knows this is his last meeting with his family. As Poppy falls asleep, Cameron slips out of the room stealthily and changes into Jack's clothing again. He takes a firm hold of Jack's hand as he gets ready to go, telling him to take good care of his family and appreciate him. After that, Cameron spends his days sketching and chatting with potential customers about the intriguing realm of clone experiences. 2 weeks later, Dr. Scott tells Jack that he has been entirely changed into Cameron and has no memory of the facility. Cameron, being himself, is grateful for this result. Jack made a touching farewell video for Cameron in the week leading up to his memory restoration. He pleaded with Poppy to look him in the eyes and tell him she loved him, and she complied without hesitation.
I love you, Cameron Turner. Always have.
Cameron couldn't help but watch this touching moment as tears trickled down his cheeks. The purpose of Swan Song 2021 is to explore themes of identity, sacrifice, and the ethical implications of cloning technology, all while delving into the profound depths of love and the lengths one will go to protect one's family's future. The film underscores the enduring power of love and gives us this message: true love transcends existence. The film opens in Philadelphia with firefighter Cooper taking his daughter Riley to a concert to reward her for her excellent grades. Outside the venue, they join a crowd of teenage girls to watch the singer Lady Raven get off her bus. Inside, Cooper notices several police officers in the area. He tries to be a good dad, recording Riley while she joins a dancing group and buying her some snacks. As they walk around, Cooper notices more cops and extra security cameras. Eventually, they get to their seats and hear the opening band, while Cooper sees that the cops are in that area too. The concert starts and Cooper has to cover his ears to deal with all the screaming. After a few songs, he tells Riley he will relieve himself. However, once he's in the bathroom, he uses his phone to check on a security camera. It turns out Cooper is a serial killer, and he's checking on his latest victim, Spencer, who has been trapped in Cooper's secret house. Then Cooper washes his hands and hallucinates his mother is standing there. As more police vehicles surround the venue, Cooper leaves the bathroom and is blocked by Jody's mom. She explains teenagers are weird sometimes and promises her daughter will start including Riley in activities soon. Cooper returns to his seat just in time to hear Raven talk about her missing father and how she learned to move on. She asks her fans to use their phone's flashlights, and the place lights up while she plays the piano. At that moment, Cooper notices the cops taking a man away from the crowd. There also are officers in line behind him. During the intermission, Cooper and Riley go to buy a t-shirt, but there aren't any in her size. The seller, Jamie, promises more are coming, and Cooper uses the chance to ask about the cops. Jamie says it's supposed to be a secret, but shares it anyway. The police learn that the serial killer known as the Butcher would be at the concert, so they came to find him. Everyone who exits is being checked, and all the exits except for the backstage are being monitored. Cooper chuckles awkwardly because he is the Butcher. Later, he escorts Riley through the venue while pretending he wants a snack. When inspecting the exits, he confirms that they're all blocked by cops. Cooper notices an intoxicated woman standing by the stairs and subtly nudges her to make her fall. The officers at the entrance rush to check on her, and Cooper attempts to leave, only to discover even more officers outside. With no choice, he returns to the concert with Riley. Lady Raven announces a special guest, and the ground opens for a platform to raise with another singer. Cooper gazes at the open hatch and tells Riley it would be exciting to get there to see where it takes them. Still, Riley calls him out on his peculiar behavior. He has to stay to avoid arousing suspicion, and he stares at the hatch closed with frustration. Then Cooper returns to the t-shirt stand and encounters Jamie on his way to the supply room, so he accompanies him. He notices Jamie using a key card to access the room, so when they're inside, he pretends to assist him in moving the boxes and steals the card key. The topic of the Butcher comes up, and Jamie confesses that he's been obsessively following the case. On his phone, he even has some images of the victims chopped up by the Butcher. All the employees received special training today and a password to identify them. At Cooper's insistence, Jamie reveals that his password is Hamilton. After finally obtaining the t-shirt, Cooper sneaks into the employees' break room with Jamie's keycard. The cops are there going over the information they have, and they agree that if they find the Butcher, they must remove him from civilians. Cooper hangs Jamie's card on his jacket to pretend to be an employee and navigates through the group to reach the snack table to hear them better. Nearby, there's a picture of his latest crime scene. When a cop asks for sugar, Cooper quickly locates it to appear friendly and cooperative. On his way out, Cooper takes a radio from a police bag. In the hallway, Cooper is again obstructed by Jody's mom, and she becomes frustrated when he attempts to disregard her. Their disagreement attracts the attention of two officers, but they are interrupted by a man's scream. The two officers hurry to the entrance, where other officers apprehend the man. This time, Cooper sees Dr. Josephine Grant among them. an officer who has been successful many times in this type of murder investigation and was able to arrest the killer. Cooper subtly replaces an earbud in his seat and tunes into the police radio, discovering that they have confirmed the mistaken arrest of the man. He was a thief who became frantic because he thought the police were after him. As some officers move through the seats to apprehend another individual, Cooper listens to the descriptions of the men they are searching for. One description matches him, a white male in his 30s with an animal tattoo on his right arm. Luckily, he finds a bracelet in a girl's bag and puts it on to conceal the tattoo. After reviewing the venue's map on his phone, he informs Riley that he forgot his credit card at the t-shirt stand and exits again. On the radio, he hears the FBI setting up tents around the building and placing barricades on the main streets. Cooper considers triggering the fire alarm but notices a security camera monitoring him. He also overhears Josephine speculating that he might attempt the alarm trick. Instead, he sneaks into the burger stand and tampers with the fryer. While everyone is distracted, Cooper steals an apron and puts it on as he heads to the roof. There are police officers there as well, so Cooper informs them that he needs some air in the kitchen after the incident. The officers confirm his story on the radio but still request the code, so Cooper says, Hamilton. Still unsure, the officers also ask for his card. Luckily, Cooper finds a wallet in the apron's pocket and a venue card that convinces them. Before leaving, he inquires about Josephine. The officers explain she's a profiler who has apprehended many serial murderers in the past. When he comes back downstairs, Cooper sees the employee with severe burns and the vision of his mother standing next to her. After that, Cooper finds Riley, who is concerned about his behavior. He tells her that he was cornered by Jody's mom. Riley asks him not to worry about her classmates because she's made friends with the girls beside her. When they return to their seats, Riley explains this is the part where Raven selects a girl from the audience to go on stage and even see the backstage. Seeing that as an opportunity, Cooper approaches one of the crowd handlers and tells him that Riley recently recovered from leukemia, thanks to Lady Raven being her inspiration. The cops are getting closer to Cooper's spot, but fortunately, his plan works, and Riley is chosen to go on stage. They both get backstage passes, and the handler tells a cop to let them pass. Riley is very excited, but still goes in when Raven calls for her. And Cooper tries to enjoy his daughter's happiness, while ignoring all the cops near him. In the crowd, Jody and her mom are furious to see Riley on the stage. After the song is over, Cooper notices a girl collapsing and picks her up, asking the workers for a place for her to rest. He's taken backstage right before Josephine sees him. Cooper helps the sick girl calm down and even gives her some juice. The manager is grateful for his help and lets them watch the concert's end next to the stage. Cooper asks her if they can leave through the backstage door to the crowd at the end, and the manager says yes. Once the concert ends, Cooper hears on the police radio that every male in the venue will be checked on their way out. However, when he tries to leave with Riley, he discovers that the backstage door is also blocked by cops. In a nearby room, Cooper overhears Josephine telling Raven that the cameras will have photos and data of everyone who came to the concert. Getting desperate, Cooper approaches Raven and asks her to talk privately about Riley's condition. They enter her dressing room, and Cooper admits he's the butcher. He takes out his phone to show her Spencer in the cell. There's a button that allows him to release carbon monoxide into the room, which would harm Spencer before the cops find him. If Raven cooperates, Cooper promises to let him go.
Save him. Catch me.
Afterwards, Raven tells the cops that Cooper and Riley are leaving with her in the limousine, so they escape without being checked by the police. At the main entrance, the crowd is delayed because of the checks, and Josephine worries over the lack of results. During the ride, Cooper tells the driver where he left his car so they can be dropped off there. However, Raven asks Riley if she can visit her home. Riley gets excited and calls her mom for permission, so Cooper can only smile as he gives the driver his home address instead. Moments later, they're welcomed by Cooper's wife, Rachel, and their other child. As they enter the house, Cooper reminds Raven that he'll harm Spencer if she tries anything. Over coffee and cake, Rachel asks about the concert, and Raven tells her about the police's operation to catch the butcher. The FBI found a receipt for a concert ticket in one of the butcher's false houses, so they contacted Raven to make the plan. Josephine has been profiling the butcher for a while and concluded he's a white man in his 30s or early 40s, has a position of authority, drives a dark car due to a possible OCD, and has a strained relationship with his mother. Cooper gets uncomfortable because of how accurate every word is and points out it's getting late. However, Raven offers to play a song on the family piano. She makes Riley sit beside her and uses the chance to take her phone. After the song ends, Raven says they should take a group photo, but Riley can't find her phone, so Raven tells her to use Cooper's as she takes it from his hands. After taking the picture, Raven asks for the bathroom and rushes in with the phone, locking the door behind her. Cooper starts knocking on the door, and his behavior gets strange in front of his family. The phone is unlocked, and Raven gets to talk to Spencer, asking him for any details he remembers about the location. Spencer mentions the color of the door and a nearby statue. Raven then starts a live stream on her phone and shares all the details Spencer mentioned with her followers. When someone recognizes the place, they contact the police. Raven also texts her driver, who is waiting outside, asking him to call the cops. When she rechecks Cooper's phone, the lock screen is gone. Raven then accuses Cooper of being the butcher. She hears strange noises and screaming from the other side of the door, which suddenly opens to reveal Cooper looking nervous. He takes his phone and checks on Spencer, only to find him gone. Cooper then takes Raven to the garage, where he grabs his bag of tools and forces Raven into Rachel's car because Josephine was right about the color of his vehicle. Raven uses a motherly tone to reason with him, but Cooper doesn't listen. He declares that he will kill Raven as his final crime and then erase himself to stop the monster. When Cooper opens the garage door, he finds his family blocking the way. He had locked them in Riley's room, but forgot about the window in the tree next to it.
What are you doing?
I locked them in Riley's room. There's a window in a nearby tree.
Cooper is in shock because his two lives have finally collided, and Raven takes the chance to leave the car. At that moment, the police arrive and take the family to safety while Cooper runs to his closet to move some things. Raven gets in her limo, and the usual driver is replaced by a cop so she can be guarded too. The officers burst into the house only to discover a tunnel in the closet that allowed Cooper to escape through the neighbor's yard. Moments later, the limo stops, and the cop comes to the back seat to handcuff Raven to a metal bar. The cop is Cooper, who escaped his house while wearing a police uniform. Then he keeps on driving while announcing he'll take Raven to one of his secret houses to kill her, an urge he's had since he saw her on the stage. When the limo stops at a red light, Raven opens the window and tells people to call the police. A crowd gathers around the car and doesn't let it advance. While Cooper notices his wife left some clothes in the car, Raven keeps struggling with her handcuffs until she manages to rip the bar off. She rushes out of the limo as the police arrive, causing the crowd to step back in panic. The officers open fire and destroy the limo, but when they check inside, they find it empty. Cooper has escaped by putting on a hoodie and mingling in the crowd. Afterwards, Raven is taken to one of the crime houses where she thanks her fans for the help, checks Spencer, and hugs him. Meanwhile, Rachel returns to her house after dropping the kids at her sister's. Josephine thinks she should be hiding, but Rachel wants to be here. After assigning some cops outside, Josephine leaves. Rachel watches the video they found on the security cameras of Spencer's kidnapping and makes some tea. Suddenly, she is shocked by Cooper, who has sneaked in unnoticed. Cooper thinks his wife set him up, so Rachel has to admit it. Some weeks ago, she started to suspect that Cooper was having an affair. However, she realized it was something else because his clothes smelled of hospital cleaning fluid. She also heard him lie to a neighbor in front of her in such a convincing way that it gave her chills. One day, Rachel followed him to one of his other houses. She left the ticket receipt before anonymously calling the police, hoping they would prove her wrong. Cooper takes off his shirt because of the smell and grabs a knife, ready to attack. Rachel distracts him by asking him to finish Riley's pie since today was supposed to be a celebration. Cooper agrees to eat after seeing them take a bite. He explains how dead victims usually give him a sense of peace, but Rachel has made him angry, so he wants to kill her before self-deleting. Suddenly, Cooper starts feeling dizzy and realizes Rachel has found the sedatives in his crime bag, which she added to the pie. As he stands up, he hears his mother and finds her calling him a monster at the door. Cooper cries and tries to approach her, only for the cops to surround him and tase him. A furious Cooper jumps on an officer to knock him out. Still, before he can go for the other one, Josephine joins with another taser, and they successfully bring him down. When a handcuffed Cooper is dragged out of the house, he asks for a second to pick up Riley's fallen bicycle. At that moment, the cops bring the kids back, and Riley hugs her dad before he's taken away. In the back of the police truck, Cooper reveals he stole a spoke from the bicycle and now uses it to pick his handcuffs off while laughing. Later, Jamie sees Cooper's face on the news and freaks out because he has helped a criminal.